Did Prince William physically attack Prince Harry over a confrontation about Meghan Markle's behavior as a royal? Hello everyone, welcome to Royal News Network. My name is Brittany, and today we are talking about the breaking news from The Guardian, which apparently got an advance copy or some sort of copy of Prince Harry's upcoming memoir. And they share a explosive tidbit about how the two brothers got into some sort of confrontation in 2019. And while Harry was telling William that he was just parroting the media back to him, that William apparently, who's very scary, confronted Harry, and apparently Harry fell down and scratched up his back and apparently is blaming William for this, saying to the world that the future king physically attacked him. Now, if Harry was living in the medieval times, I think he would find that his treatment is a little less favorable than it is now. But this is still potentially hugely damaging to the monarchy. But at the same time, I feel like without some good pictures and without some play-by-play, I'm not sure I believe this entirely. Because when you read through it as well, especially the way The Guardian phrases it, Harry comes across as wimpy, whipped, and again, comes across as if he's living on a completely different plane of existence than everyone else. And if some sort of confrontation did happen, it was more about how Harry refused to acknowledge that Meghan Markle is difficult, demanding that her behavior was unacceptable as a royal, as an employer, all these sorts of things. And whereas Harry was like, well, you're just parroting the media back to me. And William's like, no, I've talked to actual people that she's behaved to, and that's what they're telling me. So I feel like this is something where you could just completely see how the tension building between how Harry is so twisted and manipulated into the fantasy world that Meghan Markle has created, that when William tried to confront him with reality, it's not really as surprising. It perhaps didn't go very well. But if you guys haven't been here to Royal News Network before, like I said, my name is Brittany, and on this channel I provide compelling royal commentary on the latest news and sometimes a little bit of gossip too. I will be reviewing television shows and movies and sharing a bit about history as well. So if you guys want to subscribe, that would be great. I also have a fashion channel, Royal Fashion News, if you want to sign up for videos there. And I also have an upcoming trip to the UK. So I will have, again, all the links in the description box down below. And I've also started a newsletter, Royal Wire, that will release every Tuesday. So I will again put a link in the description box down below. But I want to get back to this real quick because I'm hoping to get maybe this video out pretty quickly. And it's pretty shocking what is included. And I will say from the get-go, I've watched royals for a very, very long time. I have heard to a certain extent that William can have a bit of a temper. And that's not to excuse anything, but looking at the whole situation, there's a couple of scenarios that can play out here. Number one, everything happened exactly like Harry said, which I don't believe in the slightest, because at this point, Harry saying that William is parroting the media when William is probably citing their own staff members to Harry. Yeah. I don't know where Harry is. He's somewhere in the multiverse, but it's not on this plane of existence right now. Maybe at some point he'll wake up, but honestly, he sounded weak. Almost like he's living in a cult. Kind of like if you were to confront somebody who's a Scientologist and trying to explain to them, hey, the Thetans don't exist. The Thetans don't exist. And they just keep going back to you. Yes, they do. They're going to come back and we're going to have, like, I can't remember all the Scientology stuff. But it's like you're trying to confront somebody who is so into a cult, so mind controlled that they don't know when down is up and up is down. And their plane of existence is totally separate from yours. And I can feel that William Play had a sense of frustration going, hey, supposedly, the way The Guardian tells it, William grabbed his collar and kind of almost pushed Harry back, and Harry tripped and fell, is how it's described in The Guardian. We'll go over that. But I could see where William's just like, I'm trying to tell you something. I'm trying to tell you something very important about what my staff members are telling me. That you're bullying, you're victimizing staff members. Please stop doing this. And Harry's just not listening, and the frustration gets the better of him in the moment. The other scenario I can see is that William and Harry, they are arguing, they are fighting, because I imagine that did happen. And Harry, somehow they got close. Somehow Harry tripped and fell and is now blaming William. I think all those three scenarios, well, two of them make sense. One of them, again, is a narration, a fairy tale concocted by Harry and Meghan to once again portray themselves as the victims. But here's what The Guardian said, and I would just love to get your guys' thoughts on this. So it begins. In his highly anticipated autobiography, Spare, Harry recounts what he says was a physical attack by his brother William, now Prince of Wales, as the relationship fell apart over the younger prince's marriage to the actor Meghan Markle. I love how they describe her there, the actor Meghan Markle, not the Duchess of Sussex, the actor. That's very apt there. Describing a confrontation at his London home in 2019, Harry says William called Meghan difficult, rude, and abrasive, which Harry calls a parroting of the press narrative about his American wife. William is not parroting the press. It's one thing if I go to Harry and say those things, because I don't know any insight, really. I'm just somebody who studies human behavior. I'm a historian by training, and I tend to find that human behavior doesn't change, and that if you watch people enough, patterns emerge, and different things emerge that you can really track things pretty well. And because I've watched royals very closely for 10 years, I have a pretty good understanding of generally how things go and how you can take little insights and tidbits here and there. So it's one thing if I do it. If William is telling him this, he heard this from Jason Knaff. He heard this from his private secretary. We've gotten reports as well from Tom Bower that William went and talked to staff members about this. So this was something known by people who were involved in it. This is not somebody outside telling him. They shared staff members. William actually talked to the staff members. Harry, oh my gosh. Wow. So William is not parroting the press, but you can imagine if you're William and you're telling your brother, hey, trying to be, congenial about it, going, hey, I'm hearing this from staff members. And Harry goes, well, you're just parroting the press. And William's like, no, I'm telling you the truth. And, he does it again. And Harry's like, no, that's all a false narrative. How dare you say that about my wife? And I was like, Harry, I'm not parroting the press. I actually spoke to the people involved in this. And this also confirms too that, yes, there were a lot of reports in that Meghan was rude, demanding, and abrasive. That's what this confirms as well. So it's just, I feel the tension. I feel the frustration because it's like, Harry, he's trying to tell you something. You need to listen. You need to actually listen. But at this point, this goes to show to me that Harry's in a cult mindset, basically. That when he's confronted with reality, he gets very defensive. He gets very aggressive about it, I think. And I think William was just perhaps responding to that. It goes on to say the confrontation escalated. Harry writes, until William grabbed me by the collar, ripping my necklace and knocked me to the floor. The extraordinary scene, which Harry says resulted in visible injury to his back, is one of many in the Spare, which will be published worldwide next week and is likely to spark a serious fervor over the British royal family. So somehow The Guardian did get this copy, which my understanding is that there's not even been advanced copies sent to people, really, that they've kept this so under wraps and nobody's seen it, which I could totally see because they don't want any leaks getting out. So for example, with the Courtier's book and the Tom Bower book, we got excerpts from the Times. This is not the case here. So it goes on to explain why the two were meeting. It says Harry writes that William wanted to talk about the whole catastrophe of their relationship and struggles with the press. But when William arrived at Nottingham Cottage, where Harry was then living, in the grounds of Kensington Palace, known as Not Caught, he was, Harry says, already piping hot. Well, I'm sure he was. If he was listening, especially to female staff members say that they're so terrified they don't want to talk to her, that they just live in fear of her, I would be mad because it's like, these are my staff members too. I need to work with these people too. I cannot have your wife demeaning and demoralizing staff members that we share. That's not appropriate in the slightest. And so I feel like Harry has some justified anger here. He's saying, hey, your wife is abusing our staff members. These are people we rely on. These are people that we need to trust to keep our secrets. And if Harry's wife is content to abuse them, that's not going to look good on the monarchy. That's not going to look good on William, the royal family, so many things But again, Harry is so consumed by Meghan. He is so obsessed with her, so manipulated by her, so deeply, insanely in love with her that he can't even think straight at this point. After William complained about Meghan, Harry writes, Harry told him he was repeating the press narrative and that he expected better. Oh, can you imagine how much that would irritate you? You're just repeating what the press said. I expect better. And William's like, I worked with her. I've been around the woman. We're all aware of what she's like. I feel the frustration right now. Can you feel it? Can you feel my frustration? It's like, but everybody's saying this. Everybody's saying this, Harry. Again, this is this whole thing where it's like the whole world is saying one thing and Harry and Meghan are screaming over here and the other thing that it's not the case. And they'll get occasional people from time to time who goes, Meghan, she's the best thing in all of creation, is she not? And again, I feel like Meghan is a very charming person, but I feel like if you work with her or under her, that can only be a nightmare based on what we've heard. You didn't get the stitching red right, and that's, DEFCON 1. And I will say too, I was volunteering once in this place, and if you have papers, you can set them a certain way so that they kind of lay like this, so you can flip one side out that you need, attention or something. I had done that for this person I was volunteering for, and I was like, well, here, so these ones I had questions about, so I flipped them out this way, and you would think I handed her an active nuclear device. She looked at it and was like, like she had no clue how to function when I did that. I was like, this is pretty self-explanatory here. But you see that thing where it's like, she wasn't mean about it or anything, but Meghan could be one of those people like, well, why did you do that? Didn't you do X, Y, and Z? You should have done before you did this. Like, how dare you do this? That's who I feel like Meghan is. Or she'll go, that's dumb. Why did you do that? You shouldn't have done that. You should have done this. And again, people react differently to different things, but this goes to show me that Harry, again, this does not look good for Harry, I don't think, in any way. But William, Harry says, was not being rational, leading to the two men shouting over each other. Again, Harry is twisting this in his mind. Harry's not being rational. William is. William is saying, I've talked with staff members. I've been around Meghan Markle. I don't see the appeal. And honestly, I agree with my staff members. I want to defend my team. And Harry's like, no, it's everybody else is wrong and we're right. Well, logic dictates 9/10 of the time that usually if you're the only one who thinks you're right and the whole 20, 50, 100 other people think they're right, usually, now not always, there's always exceptions to this, usually there's an intelligence or a wisdom to the masses to a certain extent. And so it's like, if everybody else is saying this and Harry and Meghan are the only people screaming over here in the corner that they're doing everything perfectly fine, I'm inclined to believe the staff members over here over Harry and Meghan. Harry then accused his brother of acting like an heir, unable to understand why his brother was not content to be the spare. And that's it, isn't it? That is it. Harry resents being the spare, and he wanted his brother to not only sympathize with him, but fix his problems to a certain extent, or fix the fact that he's the spare. William can do nothing about that, Harry. William can do nothing about the fact that he is the heir and you are the spare. He can do nothing about the fact that he is the heir. So what were you expecting him to do? This is, again, this whole thing where Harry is so, I feel like, consumed with the fact that he's not the heir, that he puts everything on his brother who is the heir because William couldn't fix it to his satisfaction. But that's not William's job. Again, maturity comes with accepting who you are, what you are in life sometimes. Yes, you can always improve yourself. I always say, hey, go on and, I've always wanted to finish my PhD. That is a personal goal of mine. I believe I'll do it. And I want to do that. That's something to me that I feel like fulfills me in a way and really, I feel like brings me to the pinnacle of where I want to be personally. Although I think my mom would say she'd want me to get married first, just to be honest. But it's this idea of there's the Serenity poem, which I've said a couple times. It's about accepting let's make sure we read this because I feel like this is just good general wisdom. that I feel like everybody can apply to their lives. It says, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So William cannot change the fact that Harry is a spare, nor can he change the fact that he is the heir. That is something he cannot change. So the wisdom comes from knowing that's something that cannot be changed. And if you are somebody who is mature, you figure out how to live within the role that you were given in life. You know, some people have cancer, some people have diabetes, some people have been in an accident, some people have had immense tragedies in their family. I was watching some true crime thing where this guy has lost literally he lost his mother to cancer, his father to suicide, and his brother to murder. Can you imagine the heartache from that? So I think, again, there's something to the effect of accepting and growing where you can, and being somebody who's mature enough to accept where you are in life and figuring out how to deal within that space without, I feel like, dragging other people down to your level. And I feel like that's what Harry is doing. He's trying to drag William down to his defeatist, his narcissistic, like screaming to the wind, I want to be the heir. And it's like, I feel like if we were in medieval times, Harry would be trying to kill William, literally. But although I feel like Meghan would have not been in the picture, and Harry would have never had these ideals. I think Harry always had the chip on his shoulder that he was the spare. But I feel like Meghan built him up in his mind the same way Sunshine Sachs built her up in her mind. So she believed she was the next Diana. Harry believed the same. Then Harry started believing too, because he was the most popular royal. Well, I should be king. This should be a popularity contest. I'm the most popular, so I should be the next king. King Henry IX, here I come. And that's just, again, the Middle Eastern families do work like that to a certain extent, but the Brits do not. None of Europe does. And so what is William supposed to do for Harry here? And I get it. There was frustration from Harry and Meghan about how Meghan was being portrayed, but it was her own actions that resulted in a lot of that. All Meghan had to do was lay low, let the press and everybody get used to her, and just ride the wave to popularity. That's what Catherine did. Catherine was not broadly liked. I mean, I feel like Catherine as a royal really blossomed in the last 5 years. And so I feel like she's done a really amazing job getting from the point where people liked her and they didn't like her, to somebody, especially because she seemed to come across as like a blank slate. There just didn't seem to be, like, it was hard to, she just didn't seem to do much. So it was harder, I feel like, to attach to her because she didn't really have many projects and stuff. But once she started developing, she did Hold Still. She has her early years project and everything. You can just really see her growing, and that she's done more portraits and things publicly. I feel like has been great for her because it shows, again, this talent that she's developing. You know, she did the piano concert last year as part of her Christmas carols event. Those type of things people gravitate towards. And so I feel like those are all great things. And so Harry had to figure out what him and Meghan could do within the space of their role, rather than just going, I want to be king. And William's like, well, you can't be king. Charles is like, you can't be king. The Queen's like, you can't be the king. And Harry's like, but I want to. I want to. So this, to me, comes across as a whiny giant temper tantrum on the part of Harry, going, why don't you help me? You're the heir, fix it. And William's like, well, there's only so much I can do to fix it. A, because your behavior is part of it. And B, it's like, but I can't help you be king. You can't be king. You cannot be. So this also proves too that Harry and Meghan, their whole desire in the United States is to try to be king and queen of the United States. That's their goal. So going back to the Guardian Post, it says insults were exchanged before William claimed he was trying to help, which I'm sure he was. Harry said, are you serious? Help me? Sorry, is that what you call this? Helping me? What? That doesn't even make any sense. What Harry's saying, sorry? It's like, well, yeah, William's like, I'm sorry, there's just not a ton I can do here. You need to figure out what your role is. Because I feel like Harry wanted to be, for so long, Harry and William were on the same track in a lot of ways, because they were single for a while, and then William married and Harry wasn't married. So Harry got to go on a lot of things with William and Catherine. So he expected the same treatment after he married Meghan. But instead of being elevated up, in a lot of ways, Harry was elevated down, because there are 3 heirs now with the Waleses. So Harry's importance becomes less and less constitutionally. And so I feel like Harry, again, is demanding that he is treated like William. And he is demanding positive press coverage, basically. And William's like, I can't give that to you unless you treat your staff better, unless you acknowledge that you are part of the problem. But Harry wouldn't do that. And then the comment, Harry says, angered his brother, who swore while stepping towards him, now scared. Harry was scared, guys. He was so scared. Again, this comes across to me as whiny and wimpy. I'm like, I'm so scared. My brother, my big brother. And like, if that was me and William was coming at me, but I was like, Harry is like, I'm sure they fought as brothers, and I'm sure they physically fought as brothers. That wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. And now Harry's scared. Now scared, Harry writes, he went to the kitchen, his furious brother following. Harry writes that he gave his brother a glass of water and said, Willie, I can't speak to you when you're like this. And oh my gosh, I can just feel like my personal tension and frustration is going up. To me, this probably just triggered William. It's like, I can't talk to you when you're like this. And William's like, well, I can't talk to you when you're like this. Do you not understand? Again, it's that whole reality hitting fantasy, I think, is what's happening here. Harry's fantasy is that Meghan's perfect. She's a wonderful royal. She's loving. She's gracious. She's all these sorts of things. And then reality is saying, no, she's demanding. She's abrasive. She's rude. People don't want to be around her. People want to avoid her. Her staff hates her. All these sorts of things. And so these two things are clashing at the same time. And Harry's like, well, I just can't deal with you. And again, I'm sure William's like, I can't deal with you either. So it goes on to say, he set the water down, called me another name, then came at me. It all happened so fast, so very fast. He grabbed me by the collar, ripping my necklace, and he knocked me to the floor. I landed on the dog's bowl, which cracked under my back, the pieces cutting into me. I lay there for a moment, dazed, and then got up to my feet and told him to get out. So, based on what Harry describes here, I think Harry slipped and fell. I'm sure William may have grabbed his collar because he's trying to, that thing where you're trying to like shake some sense into somebody. You're trying to get through to them. I can feel, I can imagine that frustration did come out physical, but it's not like William punched him or anything. He's just trying to go, I'm trying to tell you your wife is a bitch. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Please listen to me. Stop saying to me that you're just parroting the press. I'm trying to tell you something. And so then it goes on to say, Harry writes that William urged him to hit back, citing fights they had as children. Harry says he refused to do so. William left. Harry says, then returned looking regretful and apologized. And again, which shows maturity. It's like, I let the frustration get to me for a second. I'm sorry. Let's try to move on. And then William left, and his brother writes, he turned back and said, you don't need to tell Meg about this. You mean that you attacked me? I didn't attack you, Harold. I think it's funny that he called him Harold. But I feel like, too, William's, not that he's trying to hide what happened as much as he knows what Meghan does to things. He knows that this confrontation will be blown way out of proportion. It'll be twisted and maligned into something that did not happen, or that will be twisted into this victim narrative because, again, the whole royal family knows what's going on behind the scenes. They know this is all going on. So it's just really fascinating here that William does say that's what I can assume. And again, maturity going, I'm so sorry this happened. And trying to say, don't tell Meghan about this because we all know where this goes. But Harry, again, he lives in his fantasy right now. That's what he lives in. Harry says he didn't immediately tell his wife, but he did call his therapist. Which, if you remember, Meghan said that she couldn't get mental help. So why are they able to get a therapist now? It's 2019. So Meghan had Archie in 2019. Something like, again, this whole narrative about Meghan having this huge mental health crisis and nobody could help her, again, just doesn't make any sense. When Meghan later noticed scrapes and bruises on his back, and he therefore told her of the attack, Harry says she wasn't surprised and wasn't all that angry. She was terribly sad. I'm sure she was also rubbing her hands together going, yes, yes, another way to manipulate my brain dead husband. Unfortunately, that's mean. I shouldn't say that, but But seriously. So it also goes to say that Harry's resentment of being the spare is the unifying theme of his book. Through chapters on his childhood, his schooling, his career as a royal and in the British Army, his relationship with his parents and brother, and his life with Meghan, through courtship, wedding, marriage, to their own experience of parenthood. So I love this. So they mentioned the clips where Harry says to ITV that he wants the relationship back with his brother, and The Guardian snips, given the details recounted in this book, that might not seem immediately likely. Indeed, one of Harry's most pertinent revelations of private conversations between the senior royals comes from the very front of his book. So yeah, Harry, that dream is mostly dying and dead now. I mean, I said forgiveness can happen, but you've dug yourself you're digging yourself to China. And again, that he somehow thinks that this can all change. Again, what world is he living in? Like, logic of human behavior dictates that this ain't gonna go well for you. And then Harry also says he recounts an anguished meeting between Charles and William after the Windsor Castle funeral of Prince Philip, the Queen's husband, in April 2021. Charles says, he says, stood between his warring sons, looking at our flushed faces. Please, boy, Harry quotes his father as saying, don't make my final years a misery. But that is exactly what Harry is doing. He's making his father, his brother, his entire family's lives miserable. For what? For money. He's making them miserable so he can cash in and make $20 million from his book, which has to sell, like, I think 1.4 million copies just to break even. This is terrible, and it's not going to go well for Harry. This idea that somehow he can do all this and they can go on a reconciliation tour this year, which I've heard a couple of times, is just lunacy. It is lunacy. So I think there's a lot of cray-cray going on right now in Montecito. But this, I feel like, again, is incredibly sad. And I feel like, once again, it's where fantasy is meeting reality. Harry is living in this delusion when it comes to his life with Meghan. And he's living in this delusion that because he was at one time the most popular royal, that for some reason he should be king and that he should be treated like William is. And William's in reality going, no, we've heard horrendous stories about Meghan as a boss. I am the heir, and I'm so sorry, Harry. There's just nothing I can do about that. And these things smash together. But I just think, again, it's incredibly sad that Harry is using this personal strife with his brother as fodder for his book. And I just don't totally believe it. And I also just feel like Harry is coming across as just incredibly pathetic here. He comes across as a delusional cult member who is deeply frustrated anytime somebody tries to tell him, hey, there is no such thing as Thetans, bud. So guys, let me know what you think. What do you think of my 3 theories about what happened? I would love to get your thoughts down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye.